Hi there, my name's Tom, and today I want to talk to you about Ozzy Osbourne. And I held off for a couple of days. I was really emotional for a bit, so please bear with me. Um, I grew up in an addict family. My father was an alcoholic, but he was a functional alcoholic, which is a fancy way of saying he was really good at masking, you know, the problems that come with addiction. And he had a badge, and that certainly helped, hide his problems. My mother, she was a closet drunk. You didn't know she was an addict, especially when standing next to my dad. She looked perfectly normal. And, I want to say sometime, maybe in the early 2000s, my father became an opioid addict. Got hooked on pain pills. But the alcoholism was a constant going at least back until the 80s when I was, a very young child. And so, with a family that was teaching how to mask dysfunction, I never really learned how to socialize with people. You got the problems that are going on inside the home that you gotta hide, and then you go out into the world and nothing works the way you understand it to. Well, it doesn't work the way you understand things are supposed to work. So childhood was tough. Teenage years got tough. But, heavy metal was a bit of a release from the problems, the stress, the hate, the anger, violence on occasion. And, concerts were a very big oasis. You could go to a metal show and, yeah, there can be a lot of aggression in the pit, especially going back then. I remember a place called the Birch Hill, which was like the most dangerous venue I've ever been in. But even there, there was a lot of love. People who absolutely hated each other on the outside could be in there, and there's just nothing but, love and respect between the people who are there. And Ozfest was the biggest one of all. And I'd be out there at like 6 or 7 in the morning in the parking lot tailgating, catching every show, every act. You save up so you can afford to eat the food inside once you're in, because you can't go back out to the car. And whether it was Ozzy or Black Sabbath performing the final act, that usually didn't start till like 10 or 11 at night. So I'd be there from like 6 a.m. till 1 a.m. And, you just it was that break from all of the problems of the world, and the high you would get from it would last. And I don't mean like, trees kind of high. I mean like, just the positive feelings would last for days on end. If somebody had something nasty to say, who cares, because you can't hear them over the tinnitus anyway. And there was a way people's real feelings and real beliefs come out, all the performative nonsense that we go through to try to create this image of ourselves and establish an identity just kind of drops away. And I think Ozfest 2002 was probably an amazing example of it. It was about 10 months after the Twin Towers fell down. And patriotism grew into something more than just simple love of country. It became a performative action that you had to take part in, or else you were the bad guy. And society really had changed, and people weren't at some point we stopped trying to pursue justice, and for many people they were never trying to pursue justice. They wanted revenge. They wanted that hate. And rich people capitalized on it, and we spent 20 years at war for it. To keep rich people in power and make them richer. And in 2002, when it was absolutely terrible to say anything negative about the war, government, or country, when the Dixie Chicks were just straight up canceled by their own fan base, there we are at Ozfest 02, and War Pigs comes on, and the song is kind of structured like a hymnal, and everybody is singing along to Pastor Ozzy. You know, just this exaltation of tens of thousands of people, maybe over 100,000, all singing at the same time. Our recognition of how the rich and the powerful do not care about us and will throw our lives away for their own evil purposes. And in that moment, you know, our truth is revealed as we recognize together as one what was going on in a time period where with anybody else you were immediately canceled. You know, Fox News loves to talk about cancel culture. They're the OGs of cancel culture. They invented it. But there was no stopping somebody like Ozzy. And there was no stopping the fans. Like, you could, it doesn't matter what party you're in. When you're a metalhead and you hear that song come on, you know in that moment. And all the anger, the hate, the performative identity one creates for oneself, all of it just drops away. And that was a thing that Ozzy could do, and I don't think there's enough people in the world who are able to do that. And that he was able to do it in a time period like that. And there was just nothing anybody could say or do to stop him or even criticize him for it. It was just truly amazing. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments, and have a great day.